with a brand new speech with much sharper rhetoric against John Kerry, much sharper points. In fact, I think you could fairly say the kinds of things he should have said in the first debate but did not. He now has a new quiver, if you will, of arrows to fire at John Kerry. New lines, pretty much the same arguments on Iraq and the economy, but much sharper language, ones that he gave in speeches 2 or 3 days this week to help imprint them on his mind and make them familiar to him so you don't have to go back and memorize them. I would expect to hear a good number of those tonight.
Yeah, I just hope he doesn't say them too often over and over again, because then he gets back into the working hard deal. All right, John Kerry...
And he has acknowledged, too, about the grimaces. I
didn't care about the grimaces. It was the repetition that was driving me nuts. Yeah. John Kerry was out in Colorado in the suburb of Denver, and he had the whole McGill out there, right, Carl? He had the podiums and guys throwing him questions and the lights and the whole thing, correct?
They set up the whole mock stage in order to do this, interacting with would-be audience members. They also conducted what they call in the business murder boards, which is to say Senator Kerry's top aides get together and sit him down at a table and post-debate coverage, or whether or not, as they expect the president will, he'll be a completely different debater tonight. Senator Kerry really prefers town hall meetings to all of the various different campaign events he has, and he's used them at 3 critical junctures in his campaign. Back in the primaries when he was trailing Howard Dean, he pretty much dropped everything but town halls and used that as the venue and event to go at Howard Dean pretty aggressively. Earlier this year, when President Bush was hammering him with attack ads, again Kerry went back to the town hall venue. So he really believes that this is one that could help him. But with all of the nasty rhetoric that's gone on this last week, it really has torqued up tremendously. You got to wonder whether or not a live audience with candidate participation with the members might suppress those attacks, because they're not talking to one another and throwing jabs at one another. They're actually supposed to be talking to the voters there, and that could suppress it a little.
They got to be warm and fuzzy, but also make the point that I'm the better guy. Now, the Dulfer report, is that going to be big tonight? Are we going to see a lot of that?
Well, Kerry sees the 4 things that happened in the last week since the last debate. The Dulfer report reconfirming the absence of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Paul Bremer, the former top U.S. official there, who suggested that there should have been more troops on the ground to stop the looting, who also put in an op-ed in the New York Times today saying, people haven't noted that I firmly support the president's position on Iraq, as well as Secretary Don Rumsfeld's comments early in the week that there were no connection between al-Qaeda and Iraq, since revised. Kerry's going to go at all 3 of those things and today's jobs report in order to try to put the president on defense. The Democrats believe if they can put the president on the ropes tonight and perhaps even win the final debate next week, it's a sprint that they can win towards the election day.
If Kerry can beat Bush tonight, it's going to be hard for Bush to recover. Now, Jim, you got to figure the president is going to expect those, what Carl just mentioned. He must have retorts. But the job reports, to me, look pretty good for the president. And are they taking that as a win?
It's okay. You got 96,000 jobs, but you need, the people were expecting 150. You need at least that many to keep up with population growth. What the president points out is that you've created almost 2 million jobs in the last year, that the unemployment rate is at 5.4%, which is lower than the average of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and that we have more job creation than several of our major allies put together, including France, Great Britain, Japan, and Germany. So he will make that case.
I mean, I don't think that's a winner. Right. I think it's all going to come back to Iraq and terrorism again. Now,
well, on the Dulfer report, the president will say, look, the Dulfer report did show that the sanctions were falling apart and that Saddam had successfully evaded the sanctions, that was not a way to continue to constrain Saddam Hussein.
You got 2 headlines, one bad for Bush, one good for Bush. So they're going to tough it out. Now, as both of you guys know, the Associated Press ran a story today about your humble correspondent, me, and Senator Kerry, where Senator Kerry said he's going to come into the no-spin zone and talk to me. Now, Carl, is that going to happen or what?
Well, we've had a lot of conversations. I know your staff, and I've made a couple of inquiries with the Kerry campaign. They haven't made a decision as of last night. They still weren't willing to give me a decision for you just a little short time ago this afternoon. They say they're still thinking about it, but it's almost inconceivable with the huge American audience that you have, Bill, that they're going to opt out for an opportunity to go up and speak with you in just the way the president did.
Kerry himself said he wanted to do it. So why is there any discussion? If he wants to do it, okay, we got you there. You can make it happen. I'll be out there tomorrow.
Occasionally there is dissent in presidential campaigns with advisors and staff.
But where does the buck stop, Carl?
I think John Kerry would say the buck stops with the commander-in-chief or with him, the would-be commander-in-chief.
Right.
Something he's said over and over and over again.
So, Engel, what, you think he's going to show up here, Engel, or what?
I don't know, Bill, but if he doesn't, I'm sure you're going to let him know about it.
Not
if I were
me.
him, I would show up.
Yeah, not me. But look, he tells TV Guide that he wants to do it, and I'll go anywhere, anytime, any place. You know, like I said, Waffle House, 3 a.m., I'm there. It doesn't matter. All right, well, look.
He says that he's willing to do it. I think he's got to do it.
He's got to do it, right? I mean, he's not a flip-flopper. He's a man of his word, Carl, isn't he?
All they are saying right now is they've got one more debate that they got to deal with, a packed presidential campaign schedule, and that they're looking at it, they're looking into it, and they haven't made a decision. As soon as they get back to either one of us, Bill, I'm sure all of our viewers will have the time of that broadcast as soon as it's scheduled.
All right. Well, I'm going to predict right now the senator is going to be a man of his word and going to come in here before an interview. Hey, guys, thanks very much. You know, I hope everybody knows how hard these guys work. And I always whine about how hard I work. These guys work 10 times harder than I do. We appreciate it. Coming next, why are some newspaper editors forbidding news people from attending Bruce Springsteen's concerts? We will find out for you when The Factor comes right back. Back in the book segment tonight, employees at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, the Detroit Free Press, the Minneapolis Star-Trib, the Miami Herald, and the Washington Post have all been ordered not to attend the political concerts given by Bruce Springsteen. But why? With us now is Joe Strupp, the senior editor of Editor and Publisher magazine, which is the industry magazine for the print people. So why are they doing this?
Well, you know, it's newspapers are supposed to be unbiased, and reporters are supposed to have a responsibility to not have conflict of interest or even the appearance of conflict of interest. So I think a lot of editors say, if you're going to go to these concerts, which are not just concerts, these are campaign fundraisers, that you're looking like you're giving to a campaign, you're giving to a fundraising effort for a political cause. That's an appearance of conflict, if not a conflict.
Well, what if I say to the editor, listen, it's my free time. I'm not on the your dime now, and I want to go to this concert as an American, and I'm not giving to a campaign. I'm paying my money to see a concert, and you're violating my rights. What does the editor say?
Well, I think the thought there is, when you're a reporter, you're not just a regular citizen.
You don't have any rights.
You have rights, but you also have a responsibility, and it's the same as any kind of move that a reporter makes that makes them look like they're biased, even if they're not. In general, most of the reporters going to these concerts are probably not going for the political cause, they're going for the music. However, the appearance is the appearance.
Yeah, listen, there's no question about it, but I think the editors may be stepping over a constitutional line. Do you believe, and you know the newspaper industry as well as anybody in the country, do you believe that most print reporters favor the liberal cause? I don't say John Kerry particularly, but the liberal cause. Are most reporters liberal in the print industry?
I think that label, like any of these labels, is difficult. There have been surveys that we've written about, you've talked about, that show more are moderate to liberal. That's just a fact.
Much more.
But if you can show that that influences their work, I think that's another argument.
I can show it in certain newspapers, like the New York Times, although to be fair, the New York Times today did run the Dulfer report about the bribery on the front page, and I was watching to see if they would. But I can prove that the New York Times cherry picks the stories they do and puts Abu Ghraib, almost 50 front page stories about that. And the next newspaper close to that was like in the 20s. So I can prove it, but I don't know why. I went to J school. I'm a journalist. I try to be a moderate, traditional guy, and I'm standing there by myself. Why are they so left?
I think it's just, but I think the argument is, does this affect
answer my
coverage?
question. Why do you think they're so left?
We actually did a big research project on that recently at Editor and Publisher. We looked into that, and a lot of arguments came up. A lot of it comes down to the grassroots of journalism. A lot of people go into journalism, generally are going into do good, as they say. It's not a high-paying industry to start. It's a very ideological industry. And a lot of times it's people who go into it are not going in for the money. Now, as you come up in the business,
so they're going in for the cause to help people.
In general. That doesn't mean you don't have people...
Well, we're looking out for the folks here.
I agree. And there are people who go in who are conservative. And that's the balance you get.
But for every one conservative, there are 10, 9, 8 liberals. And I can never figure it out. I really don't understand why. I think it might have to do with peer pressure.
No, I think people in the business who go into it follow a route.
You don't think there's peer pressure in the print industry?
To be liberal?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, come on.
So.
If you walk into the New York Times and they say, I love that O'Reilly guy.
But if you're...
Come on, what do you think's going to happen to you?
But if you're a true O'Reilly fan and you're a person who stands behind their beliefs, you should be able to stand up for what you
should be.
Right.
But if you're over in the New York Times going, not O'Reilly, oh, man, you're in trouble. Mr. Trump, nice to see you. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate it. That's it for us today. As always, we thank you for watching The Factor. I'm Bill O'Reilly. We'll see you again next week. Now let's go to St. Louis. Go right back there where the presidential debate is about to get underway. And please stay tuned to Fox for the debate and continuing coverage.